Good afternoon. Welcome. I am Denise Simmons with the HCI Solution. Today's educational session is about to begin right now. I would like to thank you for joining us today and for your interest in our educational session for Report Designer. As we go through our education session today, please make sure to not put us on hold, as the on hold music can cause disruption to the session for others. You are welcome to call back in if you happen to drop off the call, and make sure that you can, if you have any troubles hearing me or seeing the screen, just let us know and we'll get that addressed right away. You can stop and ask questions at any point in time or put them in the chat box and we will read them out loud. Dan Collins, our Vice President of Operations, he is going to be our presenter today, and he is our resident Meditech guru. And with that, I will let him take over with the educational session.
Thanks, Danae. Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to be covering Report Designer 101. This session is heavily slanted towards prettying up your reports and adding graphics and adding totals and adding defaults to your report selection screens, making them easier to run. And this is also meant to build upon what was covered in the Writing Your First Report Designer Report in 10 Minutes class that we also present. So in this presentation, we're going to cover, like I said, we're going to cover graphics and totals and counters and selection defaults. We're going to discuss printing selection variables on the report header, and we're going to talk about the best ways that you can view the report output. And speaking of report output, you may have heard the term "what you see is what you get." WYSIWYG is that that's a term where software on the screen is supposed to display what the output will look like, and Meditech does a pretty good job of doing this with its document manager software. That's a software that's launched when you print a report to preview, and it does a fairly good job of giving you an idea of what the report output's going to look like, but I've found that it can sometimes be a little bit flaky, and I've found that there's other ways to output the report other than just, if you don't want to, you're working on a report, you don't want to waste a bunch of paper, you can print the report to a PDF printer, and that gives you a pretty good approximation, a little bit better than document manager. So what I'll normally do is I'll work on a report for a while, printing it to preview a bunch of times, seeing how it looks, and then when I'm about ready to finalize the report, I'll go and print it to a PDF printer to the screen before I print it out on a piece of paper and kill a few trees. But we'll get into that in a little bit. There are some there's some tools that Meditech provides in the Report Designer that allows lining up fields, that makes lining up fields a little bit easier. There's some kind of hidden features where you can click on a field and select edit, and you can also do the same thing with graphics. You can select a line or a box and click on the edit footer button at the bottom of the report. And I'll show you this in a few minutes as well. It'll give you a bunch of information about the field or the graphic that you've selected. The screen will tell you how far away you are from the left edge. And it really helps you when you're working with reports that are in a column layout. It really helps you line up all of the columns in the field, and it helps you to have better control over your graphics and your lines and being able to give them precise movements and to put them exactly where you want them. Another tip is that you can use your arrow keys on your keyboard for better control. You can point and click at different fields with your mouse pointer, with your cursor, And then you can use your arrow keys for more fine control over, moving fields around on your report. And also, when you insert a graphic like in the middle of a row and you want to move it to the top of the row or the bottom of the row, you can use the edit feature for that. And again, in our live demonstration that I'm going to do in a few minutes, I'll demonstrate all of this. And so also, when you're working with the report layout, in the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a measurement that tells you how far away the field or the graphic that you have selected, how far away it is from the left margin. And that's another way that helps you really line up like column headers with the fields that are underneath them. All right, so here's just a little screenshot that shows you an example of a report that we wrote that, that shows the before and after, before graphics were added and after the graphics are added. And adding graphics is just a way to make the report look a little more professional, make it a little bit easier to read, especially in separating groups of data. It's always good to, it's harder to read a report when, all your patient names and everything blend together. And it's good to have better separation by adding like horizontal lines. And when you're printing out a report in landscape and you have a lot of data elements on the report, if you can add the alternating gray and white bars, it makes it easier for your eye to follow across the page from left to right. So I'm going to show you how to add all of these things to the report. And also adding the selection fields to the report. And that one's already in the before and after, but adding that when you have a piece of paper in a report, sitting on your desk or something, you might wonder what date range was this report run for? And that's not something that's not something that the report designer standardly does. So if you want the selection criteria that the user enters when he or she runs the report, you have to actually write those into the report so that they print out with the report. So you have a report sitting on your desk, you know what date range it was run for, what facility it was run for, things like that. All right, so we're going to dive right into it now and get into one of our customers' test systems, and we're going to take a report that we wrote in our creating a report designer report in 10 minutes, writing your first report designer report in 10 minutes rather, class, the report that we wrote in that class. We're going to take it and we're going to add some totals and add some graphics and add the selection variables. So we'll get right into that. Let's see here. If I can find the right window to open here. Okay. All right. So we're gonna pull up the report that we're gonna use to start with. What I'll do first is we'll run this report to show you what it looks like now. On the selection screen, there's no defaults or anything right now. We have to type everything in manually. So I'm gonna run the report for the last 30 days and select a facility. And you can see this pretty much looks like our before slide we had in our presentation. What I want to do first is add some totals. You know, it's great to see like a patient's charges all list out, but it's a lot more helpful when you have totals for each patient and, you know, a grand total for the report. And Report Designer makes it really easy to add totals and counters, and I'll show you how to do that. The first thing we're going to do is go to our region section of the report. And just a reminder, if anyone has any questions at any point in time, you know, feel free to speak up or to enter your question in the GoToMeeting chat window. So what we want to do is add a couple of new regions to this report. So we have a place to put our totals in. So I want to have a patient total. So I want to put the total in the KT1 region here. And that is the trailer region for the patient, because you can see here that this is the trailer for the patient's account number. So that's patient specific. So I'm going to enable this region by clicking on the cell here that says activate. Now there's a check mark there, and if I go to the layout on the report layout, I can see, okay, now there's a KT1 line here. We'll go back to regions, and I also want to add a grand total for the report. So we're going to add that to the report trailer. Report trailer is the last thing that'll print in the report. So that would be a good place to add that. So to add the patient total, what I want to do is go back and select on that region again. I want to choose the record that contains the field that I want to total. So what I want to do is total the patient charges, and I know that that's in the borrower account transactions record. So if I wanted to add a counter, I could just check off the count field here, and it would count the number of transactions, the number of charges, but I want to total the patient's charges. So you can do a lookup in the field prompt here, and what we're going to choose is transaction amount. Select that, and we're going to say we have to tell the report, what do you want to do with it? Do you want the average charge number, or you want the total? We're going to say total. And we're just going to do the same exact thing for the report trailer. I selected the report trailer region, and then I have to make sure I have the transactions record selected, and then I have to select the same field again, transaction amount. And this tells the report, keep a running total of transactions, transaction amounts for the entire report. The next thing we need to do is add the total fields to our report. And the way we do that is we go to our field section. Oh, I forgot to check off total here for transaction amount. So the next step is we want to go to fields and add those fields to our report. Actually, the Report Designer adds those fields automatically. One thing that we have to do is give the fields a good label, because they both say total amount. So I want to say for this one, patient total or total charges for patient or something like that. I can tell this is the one for the patient because it says KT1, and that was the region for the patient. So I'll say patient total. Patient total charges, and then on the other one, I'll just say total charges, or maybe grand total charges or something. The other thing we have to change too is, and I don't know why the Report Designer wants to change the length here for a total. You know, right? Usually the data type of money signed is 15 characters long. You can see that there, and that's plenty. But 4 characters for a dollar amount is not enough here. I don't know why it does that. I think we can just remove that field, remove the default here that popped in there. Precision of 2 is fine. That just means how many decimal places we want to include. If we didn't want to include the cents value, we can drop that down to 0. But again, on grand total charges, I want to remove that 4. And then we have to add those fields to the report picture. So we're going to go over to Layout and click on Auto Format, Horizontal, add them horizontally with labels. Click OK. And it puts them in the correct regions. So I might want to, I'm just going to move things around a little bit. I'm going to click on Show Rows. And move the patient total charges down here. Move this over. And like I was telling you earlier, I can use my arrow keys to move these fields around. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to maybe move this one, click on that, move my arrow keys a little bit to the, move it away from the margin of the report. And I'm going to align the grand total as well. And like I was telling you before, if I want to kind of want to line up these two fields here, I want to make sure they're lined up. So if I click on this field now, it tells me, okay, it's 10.21875 inches from the left-hand margin. So if I want this bottom field to be completely lined up, I can eyeball it, but sometimes it's hard to see, you know, based on your monitor's resolution and all that, if it's completely lined up or not. So I can use my arrow keys over to the left. Now that one says 10.21875, 10.21875. Those are perfectly lined up. That's great. The label's a little trickier because of course, it's a different length. You know, but that looks good. So now we can, let's save this. We'll click on Create. Create's a nice feature. We can either do Save as Final, or we can do Create. But Create's a nice feature. It allows you to save your report and translate it without exiting out of the report. So I'm going to do that. Create. This will update the final version of the report. Good. And I still have my report selection screen up from the last time I ran the report. Now, I didn't change anything on the report picture, the report selection screen, so I can use the same window and just click print again, and it will pick up the changes I just made to the report. So I'm running that report now. So now you can see there's a total, patient total charges for each patient, and then the grand total charges at the bottom. Pretty straightforward. So now I think we're going to maybe pretty this up a little bit, add some graphics to the report. Let's see, I want to add a separator between the patients, and also a separator in the header section of the report. So what I'm going to do is draw a couple lines here. I'm going to click on Draw Lines, and I'm also going to click on Show Rows, so I can see where all the rows are. And I'm going to click on Draw Lines. And first I'm going to do the patient header, or the page header, a line at the bottom of that page header. You don't have to get the line positioned exactly where you want vertically. Like, I can do the line anywhere in the row that I want to put it. So I'll show you, and then I can move it after. So I'll show you. So I can, it looks like it's at the top of the row, but I'll fix that after. So I'm starting from the left, holding my left mouse button down, and I'm dragging all the way to the right-hand side of the report. And it kind of drops it into the middle of the row. So I want that line at the bottom of this row, right underneath all of the column labels for the report. So what you have to remember to do is unselect draw lines. Because if I try to select that line, I would just be drawing more lines. And I've done that before, drawn lines all over the report. But you unselect draw lines and then select your line. And sometimes it could be a little tricky to click right on the line. But if you look at the crosshairs, as I hover over the line, it starts to change colors. It goes inverse from black to white when I'm right over the line. That kind of gives you a clue that you're right over the line. So I'm gonna get on the line. Sometimes you still don't get it. You have to, there we go, got it that time. So there's my horizontal line I just drew. Then I can click on edit. Make sure that the left edge is all the way over and that says 0. Sometimes if you don't click as far over to the left as you can, your line might be shifted over. You can just change that to 0 and it'll move it over. And you can see the vertical position of the line. It says center now. I'm going to change that to bottom. And you can do a lookup here. You can change the density of the line if you want. I'm going to leave it to leave it at the default. I'm going to file that. And so now you can see, all right, that line is right underneath all my field labels, just where I want it. Now, I'm going to draw another line at the bottom of the key 1 trailer. So right at the bottom of the patient trailer, give us a little separation between patients. So I'm going to show you what you can do when you don't draw the line all the way to the left. Oh, now see, the problem with this one is I drew this one. I tried to put the line right in this KT1 row, but the report designer thought I was pointing to the report trailer section, so it put it in the wrong spot. So let me see. I don't think there's, well, let's see if it lets me move it between regions. I'm not sure if it did. Let me see if I can just move this up. Yeah, the report designer only lets you move the line within that region. I can't move it up into the next region. So what I have to do is delete this line and try again. I just clicked on delete, so I'll click on draw lines again. That's funny, I still see a little bit of a red line on my my screen. But let's try that again. I'll only try to get it in this row. But there, that time I got it in the right section. Now I can unselect draw lines, select on that line. And now I can see if I can drag it down to the bottom. So you can't drag it down. What you have to do is you have to go to edit, like I showed you for the other line. And you can see how this line is not all the way to the left edge of the report. We can fix that in edit as well. So it's almost it's 0.09 inches away from the left edge. We'll just change that to 0. And you'll see how the line width will change too. It'll grow to make sure it goes all the way across the page. Vertical position in the row. That's funny. That says 0. 0 is not even a valid choice there. I don't know. So I'm going to click on the bottom. Report Designer is not, of course, it's not as an evolved tool as NPR Report Writer is. So there's still some quirks here and there. All right, so now that line looks good. What I want to do now is add a gray. I want to add a gray box region to the header of the page. So the way to do that is you make sure that Show Rows is selected, and I'm going to click on that top row, and I'm going to also click on Edit there, and I'm going to add an attribute that says Begin Gray Box. And I have to say yes to that. File that. And then you can see it changes the whole report gray. You know, we don't want that. We just want the top section gray. So you have to add the end gray box attribute. I'm going to click on edit on that bottom row and add another attribute that says end gray box. And yes, file that. All right. Let's save this. Let's save this report and run it again to see how this looks. And then we'll do a couple more tweaks to the report. It's printing. There it goes. Okay, so now you can see we have a nice gray box at our page header. I don't know if you can see it, but it looks like there's a space here on that horizontal line. But when you do print it out to the printer, it won't look like there's a space there. And this is one of those things where it's not always what you see is what you get. Let me see if we can zoom in. Sometimes you get different views on things and you zoom in and zoom out. And, you know, when you print it to a PDF viewer, it looks a little better too. Some of these headers, field headers, could be shifted over a little bit. But you can see now, all right, we got the nice gray box there, and then we have a line between each patient on the report, which is good. Gives it some better separation, makes it a little bit easier to read. I'll show you how to add those alternating gray and white bars. Super easy. You just have to know where to go to do it. If we go over to page regions and go to the detail section of the report, and I'm just going to add an attribute that says stripe color start. And you tell the report whether you want the first stripe to be gray or white. And since we have a gray page header, at the beginning, I'm going to say start on white. Another thing we can do to make like maybe the grand total of the report stand out is maybe draw a box around that. And we can also add some shading to that box. So all we do there is click on draw boxes. And we'll just draw a little drag and drop a little box around it. And then uncheck draw boxes and select on it. And click on edit. And if we needed to move the box around and adjust the size and all that, we can do that here. But background color is, we'll add some shading. You can even add color to it if you wanted to. But I'll go with a nice little light gray. Since, you know, most people's printers are black and white. And then we can see what that looks like. And then we'll add our selection fields to the header of the report. You can also add vertical lines. I'm not really going to get into that now, but you can, if you wanted to make your report like a spreadsheet, you can click on draw lines, and then, you know, you can drag and drop and draw vertical lines like that too. Let me click on undo. But let's try running that again. And towards the end of the class here, I'll show you how to update the selection fields to make report data input a little easier. So now you can see we have the alternating gray and white bars, which looks nice. And then at the end of the report, we should have a shaded box around grand total. And we do. it's funny, it doesn't, you know, like I was saying, document manager is a little quirky. When you zoom in and out, it's got, you know, you can see a nice edge here, but you don't see an edge on the left side. But you do when you print it out, you do see. Now when you zoom out a little bit, now I see a little bit of an edge on the left-hand side of that box. But when you print it out, it all looks nice. All right, now let's go ahead and add some of our selection variables to our report. So we're just going to go to the fields page of the report. And if I want to add the values that the user enters in when the user runs the report, I have to add the fields here. So I can do a lookup on the field prompt. And you notice all these footer buttons at the bottom of the lookup screen. One of the choices here is select, not selected, but selects. That means your report selection field. So if I click on that, it shows me every field that I've added to the report selection page. So we'll do registration date and facility for now, both the from and through registration dates and the facility. And I just have to click on OK. And I'm going to give this a label of from registration date and through registration date. And facility is fine. And then all I have to do is go to the layout of the report. I want to put a little more room in the header to add these fields. So the way you do that is, I'm still on draw lines. Let me uncheck that. The way you add lines to the header is you have to click on show rows. And just click on the last row and just drag and drop the last row down a couple of rows. And it adds a few rows. But funny enough, my the charge labels stayed up at the top row, but we could just drag those down. Use my arrow keys to do the fine tuning there. So now I got plenty of space to have my selection variables. Of course, it never puts it, you know, one thing I wish about Report Designer is that if I would want it to, when I select a region, it puts the field in that region instead of just dumping them wherever it feels like on the report. And I'll show you that. We have to go to auto format and we'll select horizontal with labels. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. It just dumps our selection variables right in the place in the report where we did not want them, but that's fine. We'll move that around. So we'll do here from registration date. And we'll do through registration date. And facility. It's okay that it dumped those fields there in the middle there. It gives me an opportunity to show you how to remove blank lines. All right, so there's our selection variable. So I want to have a couple of extra lines in there. I'm going to move this row up one, take out that extra line there, and then we have to take out a couple extra lines the Report Designer added here. So I'm going to click on this row, drag, and just move it up. Oop. Oh, I'm sorry. It's funny. It added the rows to the header, page header, not the patient header section, which I thought. So in order to get rid of these rows, since they're in another section, I don't know why it is this way, but you have to unselect show rows. And then you're able to drag and drop and move this row up and get rid of those blank lines. If you have a blank row at the end of your report, it can be a little tricky to get rid of it. I'll show you that. I'll show you an example of that. You often, let me see if I have report trailer as the last line. Oh, I think page trailer I could add. So if I had an extra line here in this section that I wanted to get rid of, what I need to do is move my grand total charges up. Just to show you as an example, I'll fix that after. But there's no way, the only way to get rid of this extra line here is to add a new section. And I'll show you that. Temporarily add a new section, page trailer, and go to layout. And now that there's a page trailer there, well, actually, I'm not going to be able to delete that row until I move the graphics anyway, until I move that box. So if I did want to get rid of this row, I'm going to take the page trailer section, drag and drop it up. But remember, I have to uncheck show rows. Now it's gone. And now what I would do is just remove this page trailer region, because I just put it on there just so I could get rid of the last line in the report. I don't know I'm not sure how you would get rid of if you had an extra row in the page trailer, because that's the last section of the report. You might have to get creative and just remove it and recreate it. All right. So let's see how those report selection fields print out now. Let's create the report. Run it again. And then we have one more thing to do after this. Print it again. So now you can see the from registration date through registration dates and the facility at the top of each page. So one other thing I'd like to do is make the report a little bit easier to run. The way we can do that is by adding defaults to the selection page. The person that's going to run this report, maybe they are always going to run it for the last month, or they're always going to run it for the last 30 days. So we can put in some defaults very easily on the report. So I'm going to select the from registration date field, and I'm just going to go down to attribute. I'm going to say default value, and I'm going to type in T minus 30 for today minus 30 days. I need to put that in quotes. It just assumes, report designer assumes it's a string. And then for through registration date, I'm going to put in a default value of T for today. I'm going to change the registration type. I'm going to unhide that. Right now we have registration type hard-coded to be inpatients. What I want to do is I'm going to give the user a choice there. And they might not want to print the report for inpatients, or they might not want to print the report for just one type. Maybe they want to select multiple types. So what we can do is change this. Instead of equals one type, we can say change the operator to in list, meaning the user can enter in a list of patient types that they want the report to print on. That's just telling me it's going to clear out the report attributes. So, and we're not going to hide this. You could still hard code a list and hide it from the user, but we're not going to hide it. We're going to include this. Okay. And we'll say new block too to give this, all that means is it'll give that field on the report its own new section. Let's see, it removed I want to show you how it, when you type in list, it'll do the default attribute. It'll default, it's not doing it like it did before because I unchecked hide. Oh, never mind. I was getting confused with something else. But anyway, we also can add a default. We can add default values to the list. So we're going to say default value, and then Report Designer knows that this should be a list of items. So it kind of gives you a prompt here to say, oh, you're just going to type in the value you want as default between the quotes. So I want to include IN for inpatients. And then if you want to add additional items to the selection criteria, you separate each item in the list with a comma. And then you have to surround the next one in quotes too. So another one for this system that I want to include is IRF. And that's like, I think that's inpatient rehab facility or inpatient rehab patient type. And those will default in, you'll see that. And then I just maybe want to add a default, you know, maybe 90% of the time this report's going to be run for the same facility. So we're going to change the default value. We're going to add a default value for the facility, and their facility is called HH for Halifax Health. And then I think that should be pretty good. You can even click on preview here. And it'll just show you what the report selection screen will look like even before you file it. But so you can see now that this is default dates came in, and default patient types came in, and then the user doesn't have to enter in anything. All that user has to do is click on print. So let's create that and run it. I'm going to close this selection screen. Now's the time we close this because this is really no longer valid since we changed the report selection screen. And let's run our new version and see. Look like our preview. These are the dates that defaulted in, but of course we can change these and the types that defaulted in. You know, we can add additional ones, or we can, you know, delete these and remove them if we want to. The facility defaulted in, and let's just run this report one more time to see what it looks like. And after we print this report, I'll show you what it looks like when you print it to a PDF printer. All right, so now if you want to get a closer approximation of what the report is going to look like, if you don't have a printer handy, what you can do is print it to a PDF printer, which is just basically a piece of software that you install on your computer. That's, you know, I've used some like freeware in the past called like Qt PDF. A lot of remote connectivity solutions now, like Citrix, virtual desktops. I think a lot of them include a PDF printer with them. Newer versions of Windows. I know Windows 10 has included in it a PDF printer. So all I'm going to do is select print, and I'm going to choose, you know, it has like, you know, the print on prompt will have all your, you know, local printers, but it'll also say like have something that says like print to PDF. And so I'm going to print that, and then I get prompted to save that to my local computer here. And so I'm going to save that, and I'm going to go look for that PDF file on my local computer here. Here it is. And I'll double click that. And you can see that it looks a little, the graphics look a little better than they did in Report Designer. There's no, I'm not seeing as many quirky things with the graphics, and this looks more like it does when you print it out. Although this one, still the box still looks a little funny, but not when you zoom in, it looks okay. So maybe when you print it out, it would be fine. Yeah, and I think when I was moving rows around, I just messed up that box too. But that is pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions? Keep an eye on our webpage, the hcisolution.com/webinars. We're continuing to add new educational sessions on that section of our webpage. And then under the customer section of our webpage, we're starting to add all of the these educational sessions as videos that you can go and watch from our website. And it's the entire educational session with the slide deck and the hands-on demonstration as well. But Danae, did you have anything else?
Thanks, Dan. No, just that we do have the video library, and it's also linked to our YouTube channel, the HCI Solution, and you can find all of our videos to date there. And if you have any reporting needs, you need to be outsourced, we'd be happy to take that off your shoulders. We do have an automated quote request form directly on our website as well. So we look forward to hearing from you, and thanks for coming. Have a great day, everyone.